Hello, hello. It's week 14. Who knows at this point? I don't know. I hope you're all doing well. I hope you enjoyed learning a little more about the Beatles last week. I know getting assigned to do anything isn't necessarily as fun as finding it, on your own organically, but I hope some of you enjoyed the process of listening to a full album. And hopefully a few of you, kind of changed your mind on the Beatles or learned something about the Beatles anyway. Or maybe it showed you what you don't like, but helped you find what you do like. You know what I mean? So I hope you had positive experiences. If you got really into it, holler at me so I know it worked, because it's tough screaming into the void every week and not really hearing how you guys are feeling. So anyway, so far we've been going chronologically on this musical timeline through American history, sort of, and for the most part we've gone in timeline order. We went on a bit of this Beatles tangent that took us to like 1970, if you had a later album. So we're gonna backtrack, bring it back to the timeline. We're back in the 60s, okay? So we're in the midst of this British invasion thing that we've talked about, that the Beatles were part of, but not entirely. We had those other groups, the Animals, the Who, the Kinks, Herman's Hermits, right? All these groups coming over from England. But now we're going to talk about America's response. What other music was being made in America at this time? Because it wasn't like nothing was happening and it was all British invasion. That's not the case. There were lots of other things going on. So we're going to talk today about two different types of music that kind of flourished in the 1960s. And let's go ahead and get started. The first one is surf. American music to balance out the British invasion. Surf music is a genre of popular music associated with surf culture, particularly as found in Orange County and other areas of Southern California. Pause. You guys and I both know that America is not even close. Only a very small percentage of America actually lives this glamorous, I just surf and live in my mansion and everything's great. Like a very, 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 very small percentage of people live that life. Granted, some people do surf, but, maybe travel to surf and live, in regular places like we do. But this idea of this glamorous, almost a fantasy, like this glamorous way of living, this carefree teenage American that, has a T-Bird car and drives to the beach with their friends and goes surfing and has no concerns. That is a very romanticized idea in music, especially music geared toward teenagers. So that's kind of what's going on. I don't want you to think that in the 60s everyone was living like this, because that's 100% not the case. But anyway, continuing. It was especially popular from 1961 to 1966. That's only a 5-year window. But while that was happening, all this British invasion stuff was also happening. You remember the Beatles landed in 64. That's kind of the timestamp I use. So all this British invasion stuff had already been happening, but surf music was also happening on our side of the ocean. It was highly influential on future rock music and often thought of as America's response to the British invasion. It played into the glamorous image America wanted to live in a post-World War II age. Surf music has two major forms. The first is largely instrumental surf rock, which is there's no vocals, so no lyrics. It focuses on the instruments. That's what instrumental means. It usually had an electric guitar or saxophone playing the main melody, and it was largely pioneered by a group called Dick Dale and the Deltones, which one of their songs is on the listening jobs this week. We also have vocal surf pop, which included surf ballads, and ballads are like love song type things. Surf ballads and dance music, often with strong harmonies that are most often associated with the Beach Boys. The surf music sound was dominated by electric guitars played with reverb and using the vibrato arm on the guitar to bend the pitch of the notes downward. So reverb, we talked about with Phil Spector. It's where you have almost like a built-in subtle echo on the song, on the vocals. It's an effect you add in the studio. So like, remember, for instance, when we listened to Be My Baby by the Ronettes, when the snare would hit, it was like boom, 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 boom. Instead of just, you know what I mean? It had a more reverby sound. This sort of pillowy echo was used a lot in surf music also. But again, that effect kind of became a thing thanks to, producers in the studio. So and a vibrato arm on a guitar. You know when you play Guitar Hero and you get the star power and you go, wow, that little stick thing that hangs on some people's guitars, that's a vibrato arm or a whammy bar. It adds that wow, 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 and it does that by bending the strings while they're ringing. So it's like wow, 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 and it creates this kind of weird effect. I bet you've watched a movie where there's a beach scene and there's always like wow, 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 this very like beach rock sound, and you might not know what I'm talking about, but when you hear it in the examples, you'll go, oh, I saw that in a movie once, or whatever, or listen to it on Spotify or whatever. Surf music was also one of the early adopters of the electric bass. So up until this point, a lot of the time we see this upright bass, right? Huge, you have to stand up to play it, giant wooden body. The biggest difference too between an electric bass and a upright bass is an electric bass has what are called frets. I don't have one on me. I have my ukulele sitting here. So these little metal rods that are pressed into the neck of the guitar or the uke or the bass or whatever, those are called frets. And they allow you to, when you hold down a note, so like I'm holding down this third fret and it actually pushes the string into the fret so you get the same sound whether you're like here or here. Like I'm moving my finger around the fret, but I'm mostly getting the same sound because it's pressing onto the metal fret. On an upright bass, there are no frets. So it takes a higher level of training. I mean, you can still learn it, but it's not as easy as put your finger on the third fret and pluck. You know, that's a little easier than, okay, here's your upright bass that costs way more money because it's got to be made of a special wood and it's huge and you have to carry it around and it's also not loud, so you have to mic it up and it's kind of a pain in the butt, right? Having an electric bass was a much more practical option once you had some money, because again, electric bass isn't free, but overall, it's going to be easier if you're in a rock band, especially if you're touring in and out of clubs and things. You just plug it in, boobity boobity boom, and that's primarily what you see today, unless a group is going for that like vintagey kind of feel, or it's jazz or something. Although a lot of jazz groups nowadays even use electric bass. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Surf music was one of the first to really adopt the electric bass, and of course, most of those British invasion groups were doing the same because again, mid-60s. Okay, so the examples for surf are down below. I'm gonna go and talk about soul, and then we'll talk about the listening examples and Spotify and all that. So now these two things aren't necessarily correlated. They were happening around the same time, but they're not really musically connected. They just happen to be on the same unit for this week. So they're together for the sake of they each take about half a page to explain. So they're not necessarily correlated. All right, soul. R&B that went in another direction. Remember, R&B is rhythm and blues. Soul music, often referred to simply as soul, is a popular music genre that originated in the African American community in the United States in the 1950s and early 60s. It combines elements of African American gospel music, which is like church music, church choir, the idea of the black church choir, which, I can't listen to like a good black church choir without getting goosebumps. Like it's good stuff. And then combining that with rhythm and blues, which we talked about, and jazz. Soul music became popular for dancing and listening in the United States, and then we start seeing the record label Motown, which is going to be, I think, next week's lesson. So we'll get to that. And Atlantic and Stax were another two labels that were influential during the civil rights movement. And a lot of this black music really coming to the forefront, fighting onto the pop charts. We talked about Shaboom by the Chords and Doo-Wop, where they had their first crossover chart to go from the rhythm and blues charts to the pop charts because it was so popular with even white listeners. So black soul music, black doo-wop music, black pop music, for lack of a better term, during the civil rights movement was part of the movement. You know, maybe not on the forefront, but getting it to be normal. You know what I mean? To be normal for white teens to listen to black music. You know what I mean? Soul music was a huge part of that. So we'll diverge more into that and talk about Motown next week. But so according to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, soul music is, quote, music that arose out of the black experience in America through the transmission of gospel and rhythm and blues into a form of funky, secular testifying. So funk, secular meaning non-religious. So gospel without the gospel. You know what I mean? The vibe of gospel without it being a hymn or like a praise song. And testifying is like, I testify, like preaching the truth. You know what I mean? So catchy rhythms stressed by hand claps and extemporaneous body moves were an important feature of soul music, right? I got Jesus in my soul, right? Maybe you had something like that in a black church. You take that vibe, change the words, and you've got yourself a soul song, which, again, we'll listen to momentarily. Other characteristics are call and response, which comes straight out of spirituals. We talked about spirituals, right? I'm just so tired. I'm just so tired. Wanna lay down, right? Singing these songs in the fields, expressing yourself, this call and response in the fields, would go all the way through spirituals to rhythm and blues and find its way in soul, right? Maybe we have a song like, a famous, you guys know the song Shout? A little bit softer now, shout. A little bit softer now, shout. A little bit softer now, shout. A little bit louder now, shout, right? If you've heard that song, call and response using the audience or the rest of the group it's part of the vibe. You know what I mean? I don't know. I love soul music. I lost my spot talking about Shout. There it is. Lead vocalist in a chorus, especially. Okay. The style also occasionally uses improvisational additions, twirls, and auxiliary sounds. So maybe singing like Scoobity Bop, stuff that might just be made up on the fly. Soul music reflected the African-American identity, and it stressed the importance of an African-American culture. The newfound African-American consciousness led to new styles of music, which boasted pride in being black. There would soon be more genre divisions with the splitting off of funk music, often attributed to James Brown, who we're going to listen to. He's often called the Godfather of Soul or the King of Funk. He sort of took soul and added more of this style that now we would refer to as funk, but at the time it was like being invented, right? Okay. So here are our jots. The playlist on Spotify is called Surf/Soul. So make sure you can find that. Again, go to Julia Brewer Olson, scroll through. I have like 10 million playlists. I apologize. Find Surf and Soul. Remember on your jots, do not just put, it's weird. Give me the deets. What do you hear? Maybe you hear that wow, 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 wow of the guitar. Maybe you hear the electric bass. Maybe you hear the vocal harmony of the Beach Boys, right? Give me the details. Talk about speed. Talk about the feelings it gives you. Talk about what maybe you picture in your mind. Like, really elaborate. Don't just put, it's weird. Okay, so we've got Wipeout and Misirlou by two different groups, the Surfaris and Dick Dale and the Deltones. Both of those are instrumental, so you will not hear any words. I guarantee you guys have heard the drum solo in Wipeout. It's one of the most famous little drum solos of all time. It starts with a drum solo, which is, again, is kind of unique. And then we have 3 Beach Boy songs. 2 of them are more like poppy, surf, good time on the beach vibes. And the last one is off a later album they did where some of the songs were like beach-y, but some of them weren't. And God Only Knows is one of them. It has nothing to do with the beach, but it's such a good song. And it just shows the ability of Brian Wilson from the Beach Boys as an incredible songwriter. It's one of my favorite songs of all time, and definitely my favorite by the Beach Boys. So check that one out. Here are some Who Dat. So you're going to go ahead and label. There's only 3, and this one's kind of labeled for you, but do it anyway. And remember, those are over on the website. So hopefully you have the website by now. If you don't, I will make sure it's linked somewhere on Classroom. Okay, and then down here, we have our soul examples. We've got 3 by James Brown, who's a huge figure in soul, and then eventually one of the founding guys of funk music. So we've got 3 here. This middle one, Papa's Got a Brand New Bag. If you've seen the movie Mrs. Doubtfire, it's in that movie. I Feel Good's in lots of movies too. And then this one, Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud. That gets into the idea of music being part of the movement for civil rights. So that one, and again, it uses a lot of call and response. It's a little different than the first 2. But it definitely kind of, I thought, was a good showing kind of both sides of James Brown, the entertainment side and the, you know what, let's make a statement side. Okay, down here we have 2 songs by Aretha Franklin, who is like, if James Brown is the king of soul, Aretha's the queen. You know what I mean? She's the one. We have here Respect, which I'm sure you guys have heard, the R-E-S-P-C-T, but you can listen to the whole thing on Spotify. And You Make Me Feel Like a Natural Woman. That's a belter, man. Normally I show you a video of her doing it live when she's older, and it's like brings you to tears. It's so good. Then we have Sam Cooke, Otis Redding, Benny King, and Etta James. I think Benny King's song here was on one of the rock birthdays at some point this semester, but go ahead and give it another listen. It's a classic. A Change Is Gonna Come is another song that when I listen to it, especially if I'm by myself, I get almost teary-eyed. Like, it's so moving because, again, it's that civil rights, talking of the lyrics. If you look up the lyrics, are all about hoping for change and talking about, like, I go to the movies and they say, you can't come around here. You know, it's talking about social inequality. Highly recommend. It's on Spotify, but if you have decent Wi-Fi, go over to YouTube and type in A Change Is Gonna Come. Let me see if I can find it real quick. There's a video I'd love for you guys to watch. It plays A Change Is Gonna Come by Sam Cooke, but it shows clips from different civil rights movements, all from out all throughout the years. Yeah, this one. It's got 47 million views. Sam Cooke, A Change Is Gonna Come. It shows the March on Washington. It shows the march for different marches for LGBTQ rights. It shows women's rights marches. It's all about like trying to get positive change, and highly recommend. It also has the lyrics, so if you want to watch that, please do. It's so good. Brings a tear to the eye. Listen with headphones. It's way better if you listen with headphones or on a Bluetooth speaker or something, because it's so powerful. So anyway, I digress. Okay, we got Otis Redding, Benny King, Etta James. You've probably heard Etta James, the "At Last My Love Has Come Along." Oh, so good. This is one of my favorite mini units to listen to. So here again are our Who That's. So you go ahead and go over to the website, Surf and Soul, and that is all for this week. As far as notes are concerned, I'm going to put up a Kahoot review and possibly a little quiz just on the Who Dats on Google Forms. If I don't get to that, we'll just call the Who Dat the quiz because it's essentially the same idea. Okay, I hope you enjoy the music this week. It's some good stuff. Please listen to all the songs in their entirety. That's one of the downsides of the online thing. I can't force you to listen to the whole songs, all the songs. Please do. Please do. You're going to get more out of this class if you really listen to the songs. So, all right. Ooh, frog in my throat just in time. All right. Talk to you guys later. Bye.